has done it time and time again. So difficult to doubt him. However, we are in this game now. It is the highest possible caliber of CBT that you will find certainly in Europe, perhaps around the world. And in the top right-hand side, it is the GOAT himself for ends, Serral.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map in that Team Liquid Blue, he is none other than Clem. And I agree, Serral, the GOAT. And you know what GOATs do, cats? They ascend to high ground, man. They continue to climb higher and higher. And it's just, right now, after the recent matches, it is still just hard to imagine Serral not continuing to climb up further in this bracket. He played so well versus Clem outside of, I would say, like, I don't want to actually say, like, just the first game. It's like the first game and a half, Clem seemed like he was actually doing pretty well, because the first game, I remember Clem was able to get like a Hellion run by in, he killed a lot of drones, and he kind of did the same thing even in the second game that they played. But somewhere in the middle of that second game, cats, like, Serral just turned it up a notch.
Yeah, I mean, and in CVT in particular, he's been looking incredible. In every matchup, he looks incredible, but in CVT, I mean, you know, he has looked unbeatable as of recently. So we'll see if Clem can break that streak. He is going to be opening Clem with a very regular opening here, just the 1 Rax expand of a Reaper opening. So this is kind of the bread and butter of TVC up until this portion. The same goes for Serral, who has just now taken his hatch into gas pool. And yeah, everything is going to proceed as normally. So love to see it. It's going to be super exciting, Ravs. And yeah, GOATs rarely ever fall as well from the climb, right?
That's true. They can stay somehow suspended at extremely steep inclines. So even when it seems like it's too difficult to climb, the GOATs still ascend. It's pretty fitting for Serral.
It is pretty fitting. But this is one of the mountains that, you know, has given Serral trouble before in the past, especially in this particular tournament. So we'll see if he's up to the task this time around. As the first Reaper from Clem, trademark Reaper here from Clem, one of the best Reaper controls in the world. Gonna go after one of the links. Serral will just put it in the back there and not control group it with the rest of his circlings for the time being. Still manages to kill one circling, Clem does. And that is a victory in and of itself.
So we do see the third CC coming on down there for Clem. And I want to actually note, in the last series that they played, there was one kind of strange thing that happened the first 2 games, which is Serral, and I think DeMuslim and Zombie Girl were talking a lot about this during that series. Serral was going for like these earlier Roach Horns around like 330, 340 or so. And it's a little bit less usual, it feels like, for Serral to go for those kind of like early Roach Warren defenses or like that kind of follow up into Roaches when he's so good at Ling style and just kind of going to like Ling Hydra and all that stuff. So I am very curious. This is a similar opening to what Clem did in that first game versus Serral the last time they played. Is Serral gonna just completely forego the Roach Horn? Is that kind of like a lesson you learned from the last series, or is he still gonna go for that kind of style?
I think that Roach Warren is pretty strong. I think Serral has always actually mixed in Roach Warrens. For example, like talk about proudest moments. Like there was this one instance where Serral was actually opening with the hatch block that I suppose I pioneered to some degree, and he had his own kind of follow up. I usually go into links. He was going into Roaches off of that. And in particular against Clem, he has always liked Roaches. And in particular, Clem has always been a little bit weak against Roaches, just because he kind of gets or tends to get overeager, tends to get overly aggressive. This is something, a little bit of a stigma that we have had for Clem for a very long time, right? As he's getting Blue Flame Hellion. That's, I think, what you're noting. It's kind of crazy of an opening. But yeah, I mean, it's something to exploit. And, you know, another thing is not just Roaches because Clem is defensive, but also because if you go Ling Muta, Bane, Clem is one of the best mine users in the world by far. So mines, you know, and Clem are kind of synonymous, and he just does an incredible job with those as well. So, yeah.
I want to know something really important that just happened also. Oh my god, the scout comes in. The Overlord had died before it saw the second factory. The Lings make their way into the main with the supply depots lowered and spot out the second factory with the tech lab researching Infernal Preigniter. That's an incredibly important scout for Serral, right?
It is, but he hasn't yet reacted. I'm not sure that he is getting the right read from this. He is actually getting spores, which is a little bit odd, given that he just got the full scout. There's only one medevac in the base of Clem, and it doesn't have a tech lab whatsoever. So Serral at least does position the sports potentially like just to account for liberators or medevacs. This is more than anything else a liberator sport that we were looking at. So yeah, I guess he feels like it's going to be liberators with a Hellion Rambai of sorts at the front. He is not wrong about the Hellions, but yeah, he hasn't completely accounted for them. However, the Baneling Nest will do a good job of that, and it is finishing soon.
Just non-stop drones coming out here from Serral during all this. And like you said, the Banelings are going to be there to help defend against things. They're definitely going to need to get some big connections here, because outside of the Queens and I guess a handful, these 4 Banelings that are being made, it is just Lings out on the map right now. I feel like I'm getting a little bit scared for Serral right now. Am I alone in this one, Cats?
I was scared for Serral up until the Banelings morphed, but now that the Banelings are out, I mean, you have to be scared for Clem almost, I feel like, because if those Banelings connect onto the Hellions, all of those Hellions are going to blow up bad. Of course, these Hellions still have potential, but they have been scouted, they have been mostly accounted for, and it is Serral that we're talking about. So this Hellion drop, however, in the main, that is a wonderful opening that he finds. The Queen not in position. The Banelings are going to the main, but that means there's not going to be Banelings available to go for the Rambai at the natural potentially, as now Hellions over there, Links over here. The double Evo Chamber block is going to prevent further losses from Serral. Make it a triple and a quadruple one perhaps, as he completely encases his drones, and only one Hellion will reach. The Queens are going to be here to help, and what a beautiful defense to start things off from a Serral that has killed 4 workers on the other side. And yes, he loses 10 drones, but I feel like that's okay now, given the circumstances. It could have been much, much worse, the Queen being off position there.
What incredibly clutch walling in there of the drones. That actually should have been almost another like 15 or so drones, maybe 20 drones dying over there, but just being able to completely wall off those Hellions, he saved so many workers there. And now, like you said, this is a awkward spot for Clem, who lost 7 workers on the other side of the map, ended up losing a lot of the Hellions just trying to get that damage done. Where do things kind of sit after all this now, Cats?
I think it's more or less an even game. I mean, Serral's still droning up pretty comfortably, right? He's nearly up to 80, now making some Links and Banelings just to stay safe. So Baneling speed is about to finish. We are going to have, by the looks of it, actually Hydra upgrades as well coming online, both actually already queued up. So we are going to be having Serral going for the Hydra. That is another kind of response that is really strong against mines. So because Hydras outrange mines, right? So Clem is going to want to transition into tanks. In their previous series, the tanks didn't work so well for him, but he never got a crucial number of them. The Vipers were already out, etc., etc. So right now, it's all up to Serral. However, as this is a pretty scary move out from Clem. And Serral, I don't know if he wants to engage right now. This seems a little bit like an overextension from the GOAT.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to get a handful of the Widow Mines, but oh my god, the Baneling run by is going to be able to... You know, doesn't get as many workers as I thought he was going to there, but still, a worker's not bad and distracts Clem. So he gets the cleanup on the other side of the map. So I guess things work out in the end there for Serral.
Yeah, they're going to work out. I mean, he could have definitely killed a couple of more SCVs there with the Banelings. This has been such an action-packed game, and for him to do that while he is also absorbing the aggression from Clem, it is just such a difficult task. As Serral is going to chase Clem away. And yeah, I would expect for Clem to start transitioning, especially because he already has the double factory set up from the Hellions. And that is what's cool about this build as well, right? He has already that set up. But the mines are going to be problematic for Serral up until the Hydras and the Overseers in conjunction can start doing work against them. Very nice, a very fast-paced game, by the way, as we have action here in the main. Very nice drop from Clem. It's going to evacuate the middle line from Serral, and then it's going to be evacuated without any problems for the time being.
Yeah, drop will get out for a little bit as Clem hits again in on the left-hand side. The Speed Demon Clem trying to find any kind of openings, trying to create openings for himself, and it looks like he is able to find one as Banelings are a little bit further behind. Marines pick up a handful of Lings, are able to back off, and again, buy some time and space for these Marines to take a few more trades there, snipes off one Baneling, and picks back up.
Yeah, I mean, these players are playing so incredibly fast. They are so attentive. This is really the first game of a series that is the highest caliber that we can get in StarCraft 2. And it's really showing here as Clem continues to drop everywhere as he moves the rest of his army here to the south to prepare for an attack onto the Triangle Third. Still no tank transition on the side of Clem as he hasn't seen any Hydras. Hydras have not been made for Serral, even though he has double upgrades for them. And that's partly because he has just been receiving. Now some Hydras on the field here at the front, looking to help out against those Widow Mines. But this is a difficult choke to engage if you are Serral, as Clem will tuck himself all the way back, kills a lot of the banelings without really activating the mines as well. So Clem still has that fallback plan.
Yeah, still no 2-2 starting up there for Clem either. He did get the 1-1 a little bit later because of that factory kind of commitment there. His Widowmine drop is not going to be able to get a ton of damage on, because kill off a few banelings, which is nice. But yes, I mean, Serral's been able to stay so far ahead in the upgrades for so much of this game, and now he's going to have +2 melee done before Clem is actually starting up his own 2-2 upgrades. I'm really worried about those upgrades being so late now for Clem.
Good mines are going to connect there onto some links, but not enough medevacs here to evacuate the rest of the Marines. That means a few of them will have to be forfeit to the Hydra Link Bane, as Serral will continue to secure his side of the map. But if we look at how active this game has been, I mean, you talk about the creep spread, and we talk about how players are good at creep spreading. Serral is one of the best at it, no doubt. But if you look at the creep spread in this particular game, it's just simply not there. And that is all because of Clem. He has been so active throughout on every front that the creep spread from Serral is really, really constrictive for him, right? Like, it's very difficult for him to make moves outside of that creep. So he is on defense duty for a while now.
Yeah, Clem continuing to just push in from every single angle really makes it so difficult to actually spread that creep further out. And now Serral really committing pretty far off of creep. He's going to end up losing a handful of lings there to a Widowmine. Has to retreat back. Kind of an awkward retreat path back also, because not exactly on creep, but does manage to get a surround on a large chunk of the army on the left-hand side and pushes back Clem on the right.
Yeah, full medevac. There was one hit away from a Hydra from dying, but Clem will manage to evacuate it just in time. And yeah, like, a scary thing now if you're Clem is that, yeah, you have been keeping the creep back, yeah, you have been doing a great job, but you really haven't found that opening, that angle that you needed to go inside. And that means now we have a Serral that is strong, a Serral that is ready to move out on the map. And in taking this map control, he is going to be able to re-establish his creep. He's also getting a Nidus, he's getting extra upgrades, he's already at Hive Tech, whereas Clem hasn't even finished his 2-2 upgrades. So things are scaling faster for Serral, but he still has to be really careful, as Clem still has a strong presence on the map, and this base is going to be caught off guard, as Serral did not anticipate that, and he's moving actually his entire army back to try and defend this. That means this hatchery is going to fall, putting Serral back down to 4 bases, now taking a 5th on the south. But yeah, I mean, this is fantastic for Clem, who is on 5.
Yeah, the best defense is sometimes a good offense, as the offense for Clem actually creates a massive defensive posture there for Clem, because Serral ends up having to pull his entire army back, like you said, and that means that Clem, who was already a little bit of danger on the other side of the map, now doesn't actually have to worry that much, because now he's bought himself so much time. He's continuing to pick away at some of these units. Got to get out of here before the banelings connect, and does end up eating a few losses there. But again, he is buying himself time, getting up all those remaining upgrades he's been missing out on, and also adding on some of the additional tech he's been missing out on.
Yeah, so both players are transitioning beautifully, right? Like Clem is kind of staying out of the map, like you said. That buys time for him to get those ghosts, just like you mentioned, as well as liberators. That is very much necessary, as Serral is already transitioning into signature infestors here alongside the lurker upgrades that he has been getting. So Nidus in the main of Clem, gonna be unspotted for a little bit. Lurkers actually are already ready to be unloaded. Does Clem have enough here? He doesn't seem to have a scan right now, which means now this ramp is going to be very difficult to breach. 3 lurkers are going to tax this army very highly. Now the next Nidus is what needs to come here, but you can see how efficient already 3 lurkers have been. 1 mine gets a miracle shot off, but this is going to enable Serral to go on the offense at the triangle third of Clem. There's so many CCs here that Clem is going to want to lift off in order to prevent them from being blown up from banelings. And the banelings are continuing to traverse here through the grounds, but not really connecting to SCVs. Instead, Serral has just left a pocket of links there and now will be forced to retreat. But I can't help but to think that Serral maybe could have done a little bit more economic damage there with his banelings onto the mineral line, rather than trying to go for the army and get deeper into Clem's base, which is more of a game-ending maneuver, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of confidence there from Serral. It felt like, as like you were saying, he was going through those choke points and everything in a really, really tough spot, and he was able to get in range of the mineral line, but getting in range of the army is always going to be a bit tough there. Still, he finds some good damage. He still takes some really, really cost-efficient trades, as just in terms, well, actually, no, resources lost. I guess Serral is kind of losing out on that regard, but I still feel like he's in a pretty good spot, right?
Yeah, this is fine for him. I mean, if you look at the creep spread, it has spread a little bit more. The lurkers are out. The infestors are out as well. We saw one sharking around, and this is something that Serral does better than any other player on Earth. He is always good with infestor positioning. He never has them on the obvious paths where you're going to get scanned, right? Like, you know where the Terran is going to scan for the most part. They're going to scan ahead of their army. They're going to scan for the creep. If you can flank them and get a neural parasite onto one of these ghosts, then you can EMP the rest, and then you basically render them useless. So that is a huge move that Serral's going to be looking for. I'm not sure if this one, however, is a good one, as he is spreading far out of creep and onto liberation zones as well as mines.
Sneaky Infestor getting into the back lines over here. Clem scanning forward on creep, but not behind him where there is no creep. Is there going to be a massive bundle over here? The Baneling's going to be able to try and connect. They do manage to get some decent connections, and Serral gets a pretty sick cleanup there.
Beautiful fungal there. It's going to prevent a lot of the units from loading back into the medevacs. Only 4 ghosts, so he opts for the fungal over the neural parasite, and I completely love that. He still has the neural parasite available. However, important to note, it has been researched. Clem will get cleaned up here on this little medevac at the top as the game continues to go. It is a very even game, I would say. Clem has done a wonderful job of transitioning in production, mostly just liberators and ghosts at this point, as well as some weight on mines to anchor for him. So things are looking good on either side. It's really going to come down to those very important engagements, right? Like the big ones are what's going to matter here.
The double drop inside the main base is getting dealt with by a Spore Crawler plus
Great
the
fungal
fungal growth, but is it actually enough to clean things up? Doesn't look like it for the moment, but man, Clem actually hitting in the top left at the same time, and Serral abandons his attack on the bottom right.
Yeah, Serral's completely out of position there. So yet again, Clem pulling back Serral all the way to defender. The mines are going to connect onto both Serral and Clem, weakening a lot of his medevacs. And oh, that's a nasty one. Enough that Serral is going to have to, or Clem is going to have to evacuate because he doesn't want to risk losing those medevacs and the army that comes with them. As now he is continuing to just go from left to right? And Serral seems to be a little bit scrambled here to find the answers for Clem. This base is very exposed. It's very weak. There's no static defense there, and Serral finally on offense. Gonna try to make something happen. Beautiful parasitic bombs, but quick splits from Clem there. And I like the parasitic bombs mostly because of how low those medevacs already are. So Serral knows that a single parasitic bomb is gonna do about half damage onto that medevac to finish it off at the very least, and the potential to kill all 4 should Clem not be paying attention was also there.
Yeah, really, really nice split there from Clem, even though he does end up losing some of those medevacs. He's also actually been replenishing some of the medevacs he's been losing, something that's easy to forget in the midst of everything as you're just trying to max out on getting up more of those ghosts, replenishing the Marines, replenishing the Marauders. But he's been on top of things, getting up that cloak for the ghosts as well. Oh, nice. EMPs the Infestor to prevent any kind of energy usage there and snipes it off.
Yeah, really well done there by Clem, as he caught the tail end of that Infestor with the scan and you know, took notice of it right away. It's so difficult to notice everything that is going on when the map is this hectic, and Clem playing at 1,000,000 miles per hour, but he's still good enough to land the EMPs and land all of the spells that he needs and have the scans ready and the presence of mind to know where he is. He has to be a little bit careful, however, with his ghosts. They're a little bit exposed at the front, as the mines are going to bruise them heavily, forcing them to cloak.
Yeah, and we're going to see Banelings connecting with quite a bit of the army on the left-hand side as well. Serral finally taking some slightly better trades. If there's one thing, I mean, I have to commend Clem. He's been doing a phenomenal job multi-pronging so many different sides. He is going to end up taking some more loss over here as he takes the loss of the planetary, also takes the loss on a handful of SCVs, does push things back, but he still hasn't started up 3-3 during all of this. And Cats, I mean, we're almost 20 minutes in. I feel like this is going to become a larger and larger problem as the game goes on.
This is looking fantastic for Clem. I mean, he is doing such a good job now. Cloaked Ghosts causing a lot of trouble here for Serral as well. Now you need Overseers alongside everything else, and when the game is this chaotic, I mean, it's so difficult to just have everything that you need on every base that you need. And this is not a Serral that is rich. This is not a Serral that is banking. It is a Serral that is nearly maxed out, but it is a Clem that is maxed out and a Clem that is banking. So it's not easy for Serral to be like, yeah, let me just make a couple of Overseers, put a little bit of static defense here and there. He needs every little bit that he can get right now. He needs a good engagement, or this game is going to go sideways really fast.
Ling Red by picks off a couple SCVs in the bottom right, but like you were saying before, Cats, you need to be able to defend as Serral. You need to be able to actually keep your bases alive yourself. So in the top left-hand side, that's where our eyes are going to be, and Clem is continuing to push forward. That hatchery is so low on hit points.
So extremely low, and it's a liability on that front. Beautiful snipe onto the Vipers, one of the key units that Serral has there. And things are looking very, very difficult now for the GOAT as he tries to get a good engagement. If he can get the wraparound and then the Banelings to connect, that would be wonderful. But very few Banelings are left. Beautiful Infestor Fungal attempt, but it's not going to be enough as the units are going to tuck themselves behind the Planetary Fortress. On the other side, Ghosts with potential to also cloak. Again, they're not going to be very good at killing buildings, but any units that come here are going to have to come in large numbers, because otherwise the ghosts are just going to shred through them, and the Marines adding their DPS to slowly work at that hatchery. A lot of energy on those queens. They can be EMP'd. However, Serral is going to tap out. He's had enough. And Clem, woo, I am tired, Ravi. That was an insane game.
Absolutely ludicrous. Just watching how Clem was continuing the assault non-stop, left and right, multi-pronged aggression. And every single time it looked like things were getting a little bit dangerous for him because Serral was pushing across the map. It felt like Clem was just hitting on the other side and saying, well, yeah, you can attack me, but I'm going to do damage faster than you because I'm also attacking two different bases. You need to get back home to defend. And I think you were doing a great job pointing this out before, Cats. Serral just couldn't deal with how spread out Clem's aggression was.
Yeah, and the buffer for the creep was never there. And that is something that the Hellion opening did. It had potential, of course, with the run-bys, and we saw a beautiful defense from Serral early on, but with double factory Hellion, it is so difficult to creep spread against. And Clem didn't really run in, right? Like, I was looking at the Blue Flame Hellion, it finished. The Baneling Nest was not done for Serral, and I thought, okay, there's a timing here where Clem can probably run in just against Lynx and do a whole lot of damage. But it seemed like Clem's approach to the strategy was, I want to have the double factory set up anyway for later on, because I want to start pumping double mines. I want the drilling claws from the mines, which you need a tech lab for as well. And I'm just going to make a crap load of Hellions. Might as well get the Blue Flame upgrade, because you have the tech lab anyway that you want for the mines later, right? And you just have map control, and you really are oppressive to the creep with it. So we never saw Serral's creep really get out of control, because Clem was on it the entire game. And that is the buffer that you have. That is usually the heads up that you get. Hey, there's an attack coming here. Hey, there's an attack coming there. For Serral, they were all coming out of the dark and very quickly.
So I'm actually really curious then, Cass, as we head into Stargazers for map number 2, and not necessarily for map number 2, which Stargazers is a little bit of an odd map, and we'll do the intros in a second, but is that a style then? Do you think Clem could just bust out again in like some of the upcoming games?
Yeah, very much so, because it didn't seem like he was reliant on it to do a lot of damage in order for him to actually win, right? Like he didn't do that great with the Hellions, as far as like, let's YOLO win double factory Blue Flame Hellion and see if that can kill you, which is usually what we see. And this is also something that leads me to believe that Serral might be more likely to adopt the Roach styles that we were talking about throughout the series as well, because that is the counter to the Hellions. That will push them back with ease, and then you get control of your creep again.
All right, so I'm excited to see what these players are going to be busting out here in game number 2. We're heading into Stargazers. Up here in the top right-hand side of the map, the red Zerg player from ENCE Esports. He is Serral.
And in the European region, the most winning player of all time for this tournament, the DreamHack Masters, it is Clem for Team Liquid.
Yep, most winning player for Europe. It's unbelievable. Clem has made the finals of every European region since the first season of 2020. Like, that's unreal. Which basically, that was, 2020 was the year that we migrated over from the WCS system to DreamHack Masters. So you could say like he's made the finals since basically the first season of the DreamHack SC2 Masters.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's a very first statement, right? Like that was the first iteration of this tournament, and he is in this tournament, in these grounds. This is home turf. He's a beast.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely showcasing it right here that this is, in fact, not the same Clem as the other day. Because I feel like the other day there was like this big asterisk on, but Clem got a lot of early game damage with Hellions done to Serral in that first series that they played. And, it was kind of a win, but it was a win that Serral made some maybe like defensive mistakes and stuff, and Clem was able to capitalize. That last game, though, that was just really, really strong play from Clem.
No, that looked incredible. I mean, some of the best TVCs I've seen ever, right? Like in terms of performance, just in terms of the execution, that was just, it felt like it was multiple players playing, right? It's just absurd how fast Clem goes and how sensible he is with his actions. It's not that he's just throwing actions at Serral. There's always purpose, right? Like there's unit movement in the bottom, then you can expect that there's going to be an attack at the top. There's Serral moving out, then Clem is moving in a little bit quicker, right? And in that instance, he was just snowballing nonstop for a relative. That game felt, I don't know, like long. Was it like 15, 20 minutes at least? So,
yeah,
you know, and it was just nonstop action. So absolutely absurd. And I completely agree with you. I mean, the Clem in the group stages, he looks great as always, but he didn't look like this, right? Like, and he is a big match player. That is the reason that he steps it up against Serral and Reynor. And in this particular matchup, and especially when you are not going roaches against them, right? Like when you are playing like Baneling-based styles against his Widow Mines, I mean, that's where he got his name, right? It's by defeating Reynor and Serral when no one else could, and he's proving that he can still do it.
Yep, able to play his strengths in that regard. Now, this game, we do see another one of those kind of 3CC openings here really quickly from Clem. He's going to land that factory, but he's actually going for the second barracks and is getting up Stim, getting up the reactor on the other barracks, and, you know, just adding on that starport. So good old 2-1-1 setup here for Clem. We'll see how this one is going to be able to pan out, as it is a bit of a different opening from that last game, which was less orthodox.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this map's going to be a little bit easier to split as well, Stargazers. So maybe he is looking for a little bit longer of a game as well. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's probably Clem's pick, this map as well. So it shouldn't be too easy for Serral. There's multiple avenues into the main as well, right? Like that base that is blocked off in the back that Clem has already mined out and is ready to take. That is a really good base, pocket base for Terran, right? It condenses their defenses really easily with that triangle, traditionally third, in this case the fourth. And Serral, I mean, there's multiple avenues that he's going to have to defend with this vertical setup, as well as the main that is open in that same space that Clem is taking. So yeah, it's going to be a tough map. We'll see as a creep tumor gets sniped.
Yeah, I think to exactly your point, you might kind of be wondering, oh, well, doesn't Serral just get the same advantage of that kind of tucked away in-base location that Clem just took over here that we can see? And kind of the difference is that Clem, and you can think about even just that last game as a good example, Terran players love their drops, and this is such a fast map to get a drop across the map. If your opponent takes that in-base location, then the Terran player is maybe 10 seconds away, not even, with 2 medevacs boosting from that third base location over to your own, like, tucked away in base. So it is extremely frustrating for Zerg players to deal with that.
Yeah, and Zerg has the mobility of the Zerglings as well. So like the further away you have to expand as the other races, both Terran and Protoss, Zerg usually kind of likes that, right? So condensed bases are really, really good for Terran as well. As now the Marines are going to go into the main looking for a little bit of damage. Plenty of Queens here. One is going to get their transfuse. Very important to get that transfuse. If one of those Queens falls, it's like a domino effect, especially because Clem was going for the one that had the most energy there. But not going to be able to accomplish too much with this medevac drop. It is not a particularly early medevac drop, right? It is a medevac drop off of Hellions. But it's important to note that as compared to last game, I mean, 10 minutes in, Serral had this sort of creep spread. Now we're 6 minutes in, and he is already well out on the map with that creep spread. And that is by virtue of not making that many Hellions, right? Like, there isn't that same map control that Clem had. And with his first drop having failed, or at least not been able to accomplish really anything at all, things are not looking bad for Serral. Not nearly as bad as last game.
Yeah, Stargaze is also a map with a lot of different pathways, so being able to get the creep spreading down pretty much every single one of them is going to be a nice boon there for Serral. Serral's failing speed is not quite finished up. These Marines have some micro potential, but ooh, getting surrounded there pretty quickly, not able to snipe off any of those Banelings. Really, I think one of them went off on some of the Marines and picked them off, but Clem does get out of there alive with a handful of them. Is going to be able to wait for the reinforcements of medevacs number 3 and 4. A handful of Marines. We'll see how much damage this is going to be able to get done, as Serral is already moving his units in that position and has Baneling speed finished up now.
Yeah, all due thanks to that Overlord position there in between Serral and Clem. That is going to give him the heads up, and he's going to attempt at being ready. He does have Baneling speed, but you still want your Banelings kind of clumped up, because Clem, we know he can click on those Banelings. So if you come in at him on a line, he is going to get one by one, and he is one of those players that you can just really rely on his micro, and you know, you have to do everything that you need to do. So the Banelings need to be a little bit clumped here, and they are for the time being. The mine, however, is going to get a good shot onto the bell. Oh, wow, that's not paying attention. All of the Marines are going to get picked off. And yeah, that's really unlucky for Clem. He must have been looking elsewhere. And yeah, Serral will get a huge victory there.
Yeah, it seemed like it was going to be this fantastic situation where the Widowmine was just not going off on the Lings that Serral wanted to bait them with, but the Baneling connections absolutely turned the tide of that. Now, a bunch of the mutas are about to pop as well. It's going to make it a lot easier for Serral to try and punish any of these medevac drops that maybe overstay their welcome a little bit. It's going to make sure that Clem has to evacuate a little bit faster. You can't just say, well, I pick up versus the Lings and Banelings and then just come back, 10 seconds later. No, there's actually going to be some degree of proper evacuation in these situations. And this is a good example of it where ground forces just aren't enough. Mutas get to clean up in the air.
This is now looking fantastic for Serral. I mean, like, Muta are such strong units whenever they get out on the map and whenever you don't have to actively defend. And they are excellent if you have the advantage already because they can actually clean up really easily against those medevacs as well, right? So Serral having found the momentum and cleaning that drop at the north and now this one at the south means that the Mutalisks are very, very strong right now. He has the base number of units on the ground that he should be able to fight against Clem, provided that he doesn't take any massive Widowmine shots. And then the Muta should be the cleanup crew, and that will retain him map control and then maybe get adventurous even out on the map as he also transitions into higher tier tech very fast here. So things looking very, very good for Serral.
Yeah, there are a lot of Widowmines out on the map, so Serral still has to be a bit wary about that, but he is in firm control. He's been doing a great job dodging out of the way of these Widowmines with his Muta flock, not actually taking too much damage from them, setting them off with some of those Lings, and then coming in for the pickoffs with the Overseers and the Mutas. But Clem, he's positioned on the edge of creep. The problem is you look at how far through creep he has to move to get to an actual base. It's going to be a while. This is exactly not the kind of same situation as last game where Clem was right next to the edge of creep and he was also right next to the edge of a hatchery. Like right now, it's going to take some time to actually push further in.
Exactly, and that frees up for Serral to go and try to do something with his Muta on the other side. Clem is well set up with a bunch of turrets already in that inward pocket base. Storms are chasing mines. I'm not sure if they want to be.
Yeah.
But they're going to be.
Yeah, 12 workers going down to those Widow Mines as they did a little hit and literal run away from the drones that were trying to pick them off. They do manage to actually survive for a bit since they have drilling claws, so it's going to be annoying for Serral to remember to clean up later. Widow Mine does not get a chance to shoot at that massive Mutaflock. This is just way too large now. Even just a small number of Marines is not actually enough to scare Serral that much further back. Serral even has the upgrades also for some of those Mutas. He has that +1 flyer, going for +2 flyer, going for a Baneling run by. Picks off the Widow Mines and runs some of these Lings in. These Lings are not going to be able to get a whole lot done, but it is at least trying to distract Clem for a bit.
Yeah, that was pretty expensive on those Banelings there. I'm not even sure if the Widow Mines went off or if Serral just misclicked a few too many Banelings to blow them up. Because he maybe recognized them and then, you can blow up 3 Banelings and they'll get rid of the Widow Mines. But he blew all of them up, it felt like. So, yeah, not ideal there from Serral. Could have had a little bit of excess Banelings where you could have gone into the middle line and killed some SCVs or maybe dealt with the army a little bit better. Clem now well situated here. He has found a spot, a position where he is able to clear the creep. Serral maybe wants to engage before the creep retreats, and that's exactly what I was talking about. Those 4 Banelings do take care of those Widow Mines there. So only 1 worth of overkill, and Clem is going to choose to retreat here, interestingly.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like he was running really low on a lot of the Widow Mines and the reinforcements are a little bit further behind. So trying to regroup, and he's going to actually be able to force Serral into fighting a bit off of creep, but the Baneling connections still halfway decent, I would say. He's going to be taxed on the way on out, but Serral buys himself a lot more space, respreads some of that creep, which is going to give him even more space to work with, and also some time to remake those Banelings.
Yeah, Serral finding a beautiful angle there, forces the engagement after picking off some medevacs, right? Like, that makes it so much more difficult for Clem to disengage. And when you're already on the retreat, I mean, it's not easy to micro when Mutas and Circlings and Banelings are on your tail. They're very, very fast units, so a very difficult position for Clem. He manages to disengage, however, without too many losses, and he is nearly maxed. So the game is not yet over by any means. Definitely a small advantage, I would say, for Serral, as he's going to come in and potentially snipe this base. I'm not sure if Clem can react in time, as now Widow Mines and a couple of Marauders, that's not going to cut it. In fact, that's going to be food for the Muta. That's not enough Marines either, and Serral is just going to choose to secure the command center regardless first, as he now moves into the natural. Clem is going to be deflected in the inward base of Serral as he has units there ready to go, and things are looking fantastic now for Serral again.
Clem was on the other side of the map and he just pulled back with his entire army. This is effectively what Clem was doing actually versus Serral in game number 1, where he was seeing that there was an army on the map and says, well, if I just counterattack you, you have to respect this. And yeah, forcing Clem all the way back home at an hour like this is not where Clem wants to be. Clem really wanted to make something happen on the other side of the map. He really wanted to be able to seize a little bit of momentum, shut down a base or something, but things just got halted for so long. It feels like Serral has now been given the time to start up his own 3-3 upgrades, start up an Ultra Cavern, and he's just continuing to buy time right now.
Yep. And yeah, we often talk about momentum as something that's maybe intangible, right? Like in between a series, like, yeah, this player won, therefore they have momentum, and that's not really something that we can count on. But here, yeah, the momentum is really largely felt because it is a thing that you can count almost, right? It is Serral who has had the better game leading up until this point. He is the one that has the units ready to go on offense, that has a ton of Muta that's not easy to amass. He has been able to be out on the map, and it is Clem that needs to find some breathing room. It is Clem that needs to kind of find a reset button so that he can play the game as well, because he doesn't have the transitions that he would want either. The Thors are, of course, very helpful against the Muta. Serral choosing to engage far off of creep, and I don't think that that is a good choke to take as well, with a little bit of pathable terrain in the middle there. Serral's gonna think better of it, but not before taking some losses. He is now maxing out on Ultra, so there might be a timing here where Clem could push if it weren't for that pesky creep. So he's gonna think better of it. That's gonna buy Serral some time. Now the units of Clem a little bit more condensed towards the south, so Serral thinking that maybe he can find an engagement there, but he's once again going to think better of it, and that will buy time at least for his Ultras to come out. Very, very strong units, especially provided that there's no Ghost South, only 2 Liberators in production.
Yeah, I mean, but exactly to what you were saying before, though, Cats, so many Banelings is actually not as scary when you're going through a choke point, and Clem is already pre-positioned off of creep to actually defend that. So some pretty good trades there. Is that kind of a little bit of that momentum that Clem needed to re-seize a position where he can maybe continue an assault or make the most of some of these units? I mean, Serral does still have a little bit of bank and is also maxed out now, has that Ultra Cavern finished up. So by no means a bad position for Serral.
No,
Clem,
very good. Yeah, because the Liberators are on the other side too. So
okay, well,
what is the
those
answer
are
for
not
the
going to be able to
Ultras?
accomplish too much right now.
Yeah. So what worries me is, yeah, Clem is going to think better of it. He's going to see the army of Serral. I don't think that you should look for an engagement right now, because you simply don't have anything to do against the Ultra. However, he's going to find the space elsewhere to not take an engagement, but rather just catch Serral off guard. Serral looking to close the gap here. Muta are very fast, so they're going to be able to clip a medevac or two perhaps, as Clem angles very nicely towards the ramp to make sure that his units can shelter the medevacs in the retreat. And now Serral is trying to make something happen. But yeah, I mean, that was a very scary moment for Clem as he was pushing forward, because the Ultras are so powerful, but luckily for him, there's nothing like a fungal to hold him in place, and he will now disengage after killing a base, which is really nice for him, and find himself going into now double Liberator production nonstop, as well as 3 ghosts at a time. Those are the answers that you need for Ultras. So when the Liberators were at the north, I was really concerned, because it's like, wow, your army just doesn't have anything that deals with Ultra right now. If Serral manages to find that engagement, he will just wipe the floor with you. But that little scare moment, in my mind at least, is coming to pass quickly, as Clem is getting geared up with the right units to answer.
Yep. These Thors also going to be on the front lines over here, as they are the slowest ones to evacuate on out. The Ultras, the Banelings, they come raining on forward, looking to try and get a cleanup on that mineral line. Now, the army for Clem looks like it will, with a good spread, eventually clean up a lot of these Lings and Banelings, but the mineral line has been absolutely ravaged by the Ultras, by the Lings, by the Banelings. And it does seem like the tax has been taken on Clem's economy, which... not gonna lie, Cats, it hasn't been looking amazing, but he's still at a relatively okay work account. Is this still, recoverable for Clem in that sense?
Yeah, it's fine for Clem. It's maybe even good, because he has all of the mules to work with. So 64 workers to 73, I mean, that's not where Serral wants to be either. It is a map that doesn't have, that many bases available, so Serral really wants that gold. But that means Serral is also playing, and has been playing, kind of a low economy game, and one of his bases just got picked off again. And this is not the engagement that Serral is looking for. Things are looking better and better for Clem every second that passes by right now.
Yeah, costly trades here for Serral. Yes, he's getting a couple of cleanups on some high-value units. Yes, Clem's supply is lower, but Serral's bank is more or less gone. And like you said, another one of those hatcheries getting sniped off during all this. It really feels like Clem has been able to fire back during these trades, while Serral is just...
GG.
Oh my god, yeah, tied up supplies, but Serral just realized he doesn't have that much more in the tank.
No, there was no chance there. I mean, if you look at the army there of Serral, he mostly just had Lings to work with. He had like a couple of Banelings and Corruptors, which don't do anything, right? So that was very costly for Serral to take those engagements on the other side. And Clem was already preset with command centers and whatnot to kind of fly them back out. So there were some scary moments. And if I had to say something, I mean, Serral had a lot of gas at the end of that game. He had like 2,000, 2,500 gas or so. If he could have gotten some investors to aid the ultras to find those engagements that he needed to hold the army in place, I think that might have been good. And, you know, investors, the primary cost is the gas, right? That's 150 gas per investor and only 100 minerals. So, you know, do you prefer having one investor or 4 circlings? I think one investor almost every time, given you're going ultra and whatnot. So I don't know if that's an oversight. Serral is the type of player that will go for investors. Most European pros will, you know, not actually, or at least for a very long time, they were very, you know, very much of the idea that ultras and investors, you don't really need the two. And if you're going ultras, it's just to kind of overwhelm and attack over and over again. But I find investors are just absolutely insane. If you can land the fungal, then, you know, they will hold the army in place, and then the ultras can shred through everything. So that would have been nice to see. A very, very strong game, a strong start for Serral as well, Ravi, but Clem recovering throughout the last, you know, 4 or 5 minutes of the game. It just went better and better, and Serral not able to maintain momentum there throughout. So Clem's 2-0. He's 2-0 up.
Yeah, pretty incredible. And I have to say, I feel like the thing that went really well and helped secure a lot of that kind of early game momentum for Serral were the mutas. And you were talking about how effective they were. They were also constantly pulling Clem back at home, keeping him from being on the offensive, while Serral was able to just defend any kind of like drop attempts and stuff with the Lings and Banelings, and the mutas are able to do counter damage or punish drops in a more significant way. But it was kind of once the mutas started fading off a little bit, it felt like Clem was able to get a little bit more presence out on the map and start finding some of the counter damage as Serral was also kind of starting to overcommit for some of those fights.
Yeah, Serral's transitions were not on point, and some of the engagements were also kind of like sketch, right? Like he lost a lot of Banelings in the middle there on that area where there is that dead airspace, and he had to disengage twice. And whenever you disengage against an army that has range, you're gonna lose units on the retreat. So I think Serral had a very, very clean early game, but throughout the mid game, a couple of mistakes perhaps on engagements where Clem did a wonderful job of capitalizing. Muta, okay, I'm gonna add a couple of Thorts. Ultras, okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of Ghosts, a little bit of Liberators. There were timings for Serral that he could have exploited, but he wasn't able to, and that is to the credit of Clem. What an incredible series, and the underdog is winning so far. In the bottom left-hand side, it is the GOAT, however, the greatest of all time, looking to prove it and make it to the finals of the European portion of this DreamHack Masters Atlanta. It is Serral.
Up here in the top right-hand side of the map, he may not be a world champion, but he is still a European king. Up 2-0, he is Team Liquid's Clem.
Yeah, proudest achievement from Serral, of course, the 2018 World Championship, where, you know, that was the last BlizzCon effectively. He came in, and was it the last BlizzCon or was there one more? I think that was it, right?
2018 was the one that he was citing. 2019 was the last.
Okay, well,
BlizzCon.
Regardless, the first one that he won, right? Like that was such an emotional moment for me. I was in the crowd. It felt so like the energy of the crowd and just
people were crying. I can
cried,
say
I
as someone
cried,
that was in the crowd, people were crying in the crowd because of how meaningful that moment was.
It was incredibly meaningful. Yeah,
it was meaningful for StarCraft.
Yeah, extremely so. I mean, yeah, I've been playing StarCraft for over 20 years, right? And for 20 or leading up to that point for something like 18 years or 17 years, or it's been a long while. Difficult to count how many years, but for many, many years, we had never had anyone close to becoming a world champion that wasn't Korean, right? So there had always been that storyline running where, you know, the non-Koreans are just worse, and you know, I was a non-Korean player, so you know that always sticks with you, right? Like, yeah, we're just worse. And then Serral came, and you know, it was really a very emotional moment for so many of us, especially if you've been around for long enough. It was just incredible, and he also was getting teary and you know, like emotional himself in his very own way, and it was just beautiful to watch. Completely full arena, just absolutely packed all the way to the back. Just, you know, like you had to be standing somewhere, and there was no place in the corridors. It was just a beautiful moment. So I can very much see why that would be his proudest. You know, I mean, it might be my proudest. And I was just in the crowd.
Yeah, and I think Serral has still continued to live up to a lot of the hype that he has built up for himself all those many years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. As I was, I think I made a tweet about this recently because I thought it was just so phenomenal. Serral only really ends up losing like roughly 7 to like maybe 15 or 16 best of threes a year. He barely loses like a handful of best of threes or best of five pluses a year. So he just has an absurdly high win rate. It's always like 85 or so percent or higher. It's actually like a momentous occasion when Serral loses.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when someone takes a map from Serral and they're up to the task, it's so exciting, right? And Clem has already taken 2. And by the way, he has gone for extremely fast upgrades here. 1-1 already on the way. Some of the quickest T-base I have ever seen. So Clem mixing it up as well, playing a very greedy game, mind you. And I absolutely love this because he has Serral on the back foot. So this is Serral that's going to really, I think, mindset-wise, right? Like, not want to take risks. This is Serral that should still feel confident that he is the best or one of the greatest players in the world at any given point in time. So yeah, I love this risk from Clem because he's saying, hey, if you all in me, maybe I die, you know, like, but you're not gonna all in me, and I'm just gonna get away with murder here, and that's what he's looking for.
Now, Cats, Serral moves into that Overlord. It gets picked off by the Marines and everything. Are there like other signs that Serral could use to identify how fast these engineering bays are besides just seeing the engineering bays, like the unit counts or like the timing of the buildings or something? Or is this just kind of going unscouted right now for Serral?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Ravi. I'm not sure what Serral is supposed to do here, to be honest, either. So let's see. There's an armory going up as well. So there's going to be Hellbats being added here to the mix. Roach Warren is a good choice, I think.
Yeah, I'm really curious if the armory is going to be just the like Hellbats and stuff, because he's only made the 4 Hellions, right? So just super fast 2-2, right?
Yeah, it's both. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't used the Hellions, he hasn't suicided the Hellions, so there's gonna be a timing where he potentially uses them for Hellbats. He's just skirting the creep for that, and otherwise he should be starting 2-2 very fast here as well. As his 1-1 just finished, 2-2 is up. The roaches for Serral are a really good method of kind of absorbing. And yeah, if I'm surprised about anything, is that Clem is not looking for a move out, but I guess there's a lot of investment going into 2-2 right now, so yeah, seems good.
Yeah. The upside here for Serral, like you were saying, is that there are only just those 4 Hellions kind of poking at the edge of creep and stuff. And since there is no push out here, Serral basically has a lot of free space to work with for a bit longer. The kind of funny thing with that, though, Cass, is that Serral is still flooding out a lot of roaches. He's still kind of respected the potential of an early game aggression because he still ended up making 17 links and everything. So all in all, okay, yeah, this is actually where things are going for Serral. He's not thinking about defense anymore. He's thinking about offense with that Nidus Worm.
Yeah, and I kind of like that. He's going to line up his 1-1 attack as well with it. So he's going to be even on upgrades when the Nidus hits. But Clem is going to have 2-2 not too far thereafter. The Hellions now, or the Hellbats now morphing back into Hellions. Clem really needs to try to find the Nidus whenever it goes down. Serral is looking for we see the Overlord moving there at the top, I believe. So he's going towards the top of the map there to try to, yeah, the Overseer. He's going to try to land the Nidus somewhere there, as our observer is pointing out. And yeah, I mean, this could be very dangerous for Clem if he is not paying attention. If he is paying attention, however, this is a risk and a punish that Serral is going for here onto Clem. Serral's going to try to distract Clem here at the front. Clem is just going to tactile and run with the army that he was looking to harass with. Mines are not going to be particularly effective against Ravagers, and this is exactly why Serral is just going to bile them down with a good eye on the ground. He notices the shade. Now Nidus going in on the main as Serral does all of this, so let's see what he can load onto it as Clem is going to be very preoccupied with this army that's kind of catching him off guard, and Serral looking very strong here at the front with the Roach Ravager composition. The Marines, I mean, they're not going to fare well in a choke. The Nidus is now yelling in the main as the Queens have made their way through. Clem does manage to pick up the Nidus, a wonderful feat for him, but is that gonna be enough? The Factory actually blocking Clem a little bit there, but he really wants to get units out of it. Serral with the option to snipe it as the CC retreats. The Queens are still here, but no creep. Is gonna be no transfuse until the next Nidus pops up. So Clem is gonna look for the cleanup on that very smartly before joining his army together for a defense against the Roach Ravager.
A lot of good damage happening over there as Serral's able to find 25 of those workers. He's going to try and poke into the natural because he knows that he still wants to find a bit more. Remember, this was a big commitment for Serral to go for all of this. He still wants to find something more, but the Marines are stepping forward. They're dodging out of the way of the Biles. Is the 2-2 upgrade going to be enough? Are enough SCVs going to be here to buffer? It seems like Serral is starting to break further through, but Clem pushing Serral back down to the low ground. I mean, doubling the supply. I know roaches are inflated supply caps, but surely this is enough damage, right?
No, yeah, it looks like it. It looks like Serral has done it here. It looks like Clem doesn't have much legs to stand on, and he is going to have to tap out. All the medevacs were out of energy as well. And Serral with a cheeky win and a punish as well for a Clem that was looking for that greed. I mean, you love to see it because Clem, I really loved his strategy, his approach. He was saying, I am up. I've earned those 2 games. I'm going to sneak a victory here on the back of just being super greedy with the upgrades. Serral identifies it and looks for a punish. He is not scared. He is not, saying like, you know what? Yeah, get away with it. Let's just take it to a later game and I won't make any mistakes there. Like Raynor, for example, was saying yesterday that Serral always pretends to be perfect and very much showing that he is ready and willing to get down and dirty now.
Yeah, and what a perfect game to go for it when Clem was going for those super fast upgrades, hitting, I think, just, 10, 15 seconds before the 2-2 is actually even finished up over there for Clem. I think things could not have timed out better there for Serral in terms of when he decided, like what game he decided to actually bust out on against what build, and also the exact timing that he ended up hitting with was all so perfect there for Serral. And I'm super curious now how things play out heading into game number 4. Serral was able to halt a little bit of that momentum that Clem was able to build up for himself toward the end of game number 2, as Clem was like re-seizing a lot of the late game situations and stuff. But now it feels like we're going to maybe have another opportunity here for Serral to bounce back in this series. No longer down 0-2.
Yeah, no longer down, and now relying on the roaches as well, right? Like, and I kind of like that personally against Clem. You know that Clem is going to be making the mines. You know that he is excellent with those as well. Bio, it's easier to absorb with roaches. A lot of the time, you just have to sit back against the roaches and get a maxed out army of something of the sorts. But there are transitions into lurkers and whatnot, like a style that Dark popularized about a year ago, right? Like, so there is transitions out of the roach style into the late game. And they are very, very good at absorbing aggression. And we know that, I mean, as far as aggression, this Clem is just one of the best players in the world at any given point in time. He is just absolutely absurd. So, if you account for that, I think that is a good way to go about it. In the bottom left-hand side, it is for ENCE Esports, Serral.
And up here in the top right-hand side of the map, the blue Terran player from Team Liquid, he is Clem. Cats, I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think the one little asterisk I'll put on everything you just mentioned, though, is that the roach play and everything, I think we have still yet to see Serral implore it in a game where it isn't just like that last game was an all-in. It's a different kind of situation from what we were talking about, where it gets into like a later stage game and he's defending and deflecting drops and stuff. In that game, like there was no aggression from Clem. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm actually super interested and keen on seeing Serral pull off that kind of roach defense and stuff against what Clem has been throwing out. But that last game was not the example to say like, yes, proof of concept, Serral is on point with this. And that's what I'm hoping we're going to get to see this game.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, proof of concept against the mines, certainly, right? You saw them get biled. Yeah. So
That's true.
The mines didn't do anything at all because the Ravagers biled them. That's always going to happen when you have that, and Serral paying attention on offense. And it is just true that the roaches are good at absorbing bio. It is just they are just very strong defensive units. So you have the history of StarCraft as a proof of concept for that, and we know that Clem is an aggressive player. So I think it does fare well against them. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I guess, in this series whether Serral will employ them. He has in the past, though.
Yeah, interested to see how that's going to play out. Now, Inside and Out, always a interesting map to see how things will shake out with different maps. I mean, we definitely saw Data C, for example, being a great map where things definitely went to the later stages, both players getting to their hyper late game situations, getting up to those high upgrades and stuff and high base counts, versus, you know, some of the other maps where maybe things end a little bit faster, or players play a little bit more aggressive. How do you kind of feel about Inside and Out, how like base expansions, all that stuff kind of play out, Cats?
Inside and Out is an interesting map, right? Like, it's going to be usually good for Terran. You have a lot of ledges where you can place tanks. It's relatively easy to defend your natural and your third with tanks from different positions here onto that low ground. It's also a short rush distance map, which should fare well for a player like Clem, should he want to apply aggression. And for that reason, also, Roach has gained a little bit of value should Serral want to go into the styles that we've been talking about, right? Like, because you are going to be faster to absorb or like stronger to absorb the early portions of the attacks, and you're also going to be faster on offense, which Roaches also gain value from shorter maps. So it's an interesting map. I think that Clem is going to definitely be looking for some aggression here. But yeah.
All right, well, we're going to find out exactly how that'll go. We do have a handful more Lings starting to be pushed on out over here for Serral. So more than enough to deal with the Reaper, but also enough to deal with any kind of Hellions and stuff that are going to be popping out in the immediate future. But he is going to try and circumvent them around that Reaper, send them straight across the map, maybe to try and ambush Clem, who's going to be a bit unsuspecting about this.
Yeah, really nice moves here from Serral, as he is also going to see the units out on the map from Clem with the Overlord. So he's going to go now in, knowing that the units are not back home. And we'll see what he can find. The Hellion quick to react on the side of Clem. Can he find a pocket where he can tuck himself in? It looks like not. And now the Hellion is running away from this link. They are looking for damage onto the SCVs. As they reach the Hellion, they should turn their attention to it. And now Clem just running to the safety of his Hellions, which have to retreat all the way back, not before losing 5 SCVs. And because of the position where that happens, Serral is able to evacuate with just about half of his army as well. So beautiful move here from the Finn. We have someone in production open. Their mic is open. I'm not sure if everyone can hear them, but I definitely can.
I think only we can hear them, so we're good. But yeah, that was a really, really nice counter damage. Not only did it kill off those workers, but it also it buys space and time for the creep spread that I know you were talking so much about on Stargazers, on Data C and everything, Cats, but the creep spread, being able to have that extra space to get that started, especially at that kind of like just beginning between the natural and the third, is so critical, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we see the creep continue to spread here, and I mean, Clem has a lot of Hellions to work with. The Banshee is actually here unannounced. The Cloak is not ready yet, so that is a little bit of a breather for Serral, because if Cloak was done, then a lot more drones are going to go down there, but about 80% of the way done is going to mean that the Banshee is going to retreat. So a little bit, maybe a little bit too much credit from Clem to Serral, not waiting for the Cloak there. If you are paying for the research, then I think a lot of the time you just want to wait for it, right? So that you don't give him the heads up to drop those spores. But Clem probably thinks, I want to hit as fast as possible because I trust Serral to have the defenses necessary to have the spores up already, and he didn't. So again, a little bit too much credit perhaps from Clem, but he's still going to find a nice hatchery here, and there isn't a detection ready for Serral, so Clem's just going to cloak at the last second to make sure that this spore does not go up.
Yeah, beautifully done there by Clem. Should also be able to actually push back a little bit of that creep spread over there before the Overseer pops up. Another 4th base attempt over here, but 2 Banshees do quite a bit of damage, so even as they start to micro back, they force another cancel. Serral, I mean, it's 3 cancels. I mean, that's actually quite a few minerals. Oh! Well, Hellions.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I mean, Serral very fast to react there with the Evo Chamber, but this choke is very nasty from Clem, so he's trying to bait the links there, and as the links retreat, that is when Clem is going to go into the main. This is a barbecue and a half. I mean, 11 workers have already fallen. That base was already rebuilt multiple times. The Banshees are still threatening there as 3 queens are located there, and Clem knows it, so he knows he has free reign to go into the main. The links have mostly been taken care of, so whatever trickles here is what Serral has to work with, but it's 20 workers already going down. This is
only 4 links.
Very strong position now for Clem after Serral found a beautiful opening early on with his links. This is more than slapped him back in the face. I mean, with the magnitude of Clem's I mean, I guess not so big hand, but you know, like it's gonna be plenty enough. 26 workers, just absolutely absurd damage. Beautifully done by the French.
Oh god, and there were just so few Lings left over. There's 2 Lings out on the map right now, Cats. That's it. 2 Lings and a handful of Banelings being morphed in. As Clem, he doesn't even need to get any damage done to these Marines, but he's already done enough damage. He still should be able to find some kind of interesting trades, as these Banelings do not have like a whole lot of potential to just guarantee kills on these Marines off of creep, because the creep spread isn't that far spread over here. The 4th base just finished up. There isn't really a lot of defensive posturing here for Serral.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because Clem doesn't really need to do anything, and I think he knows that. I think anything would be an overcommitment, but just staying here is actually negating the creep and forging that path that he needs later on for when he has the units. He already has all the advantages that he needs to work with, so put him to use. On the other side, Serral is going to find a few. He really wants a little bit more. Beautiful move there from the Finn. Gonna find an additional 3 or so SCVs where he maybe Myriad is getting 1 more. Now the mines are gonna be put to effect, but mostly being dodged there by Serral. So Clem forced to evacuate this location on the back of Serral, distracting him with the run by 11 SCVs full. A much needed victory there for Serral to try to even things out a little bit. Yeah,
be able to strike back with a handful of worker kills is going to be nice. The creep spread also going to be able to spot out these 3 medevacs heading over to the main base. Serral's prepared with a handful of lings at one of the locations, but the hatchery still gets canceled before actually the medevacs head over to the main base. Widowmine even unloads and makes things a bit more complicated. And Serral should get the Banelings there relatively soon, but he's also dealing with the medevac on the right-hand side, so Serral potentially going to have his attention split again.
Yeah, and I mean, this is not ideal for Serral here either, right? Like, if we look at Clem, he has been keeping tabs on that right-hand side of the map to make sure the creep doesn't get out of control. If we look at Serral, he's recognizing, hey, just get out of there or let me spread my creep. He drops like 1,000 creep tumors there because he also has the queens located there because he needed them in order to defend that base. So all of the queens are over there, but this is too much, Clem. And Serral is going to really struggle here as now the links make their way. But 2 of those queens are very low. They're on health, getting the transfuses that they need, but the transfuse energy has mostly been spent. Serral will have to bring the brunt of his army in order to clear that location. Now the Spore moves on forward to clear the remaining mines, but on the other side, Clem is ready to go again.
Oh my god. I want to note during all this, Clem is actually on the left-hand side sniping off a handful of Overlords. Serral's supply block, he only had 1 Overlord in production. He's making 1 Overlord, but he's still supply block. He's starting up another Overlord. He has not been able to make units this entire past, I want to say, almost 60 seconds now.
That is really bad. And I mean, the creep tumors here, like, look at them. They haven't been able to move since they were planted, and there's so many of them because Serral really wants to get some presence out on that side of the map. I mean, creep is really essential to Zerg, and Serral has been unable to really spread it as much as he would like to. There's some creep spread in the middle, but that's mostly inconsequential because Clem has no intention of using the middle for the time being. He knows where Serral is weak. He knows where he has been applying the pressure. It's on the sides, and that's where he's going to remain.
Widowmine's able to get off some decent shots, cleaning up a handful of those Banelings, and the Marines continuing to poke on forward at the edge of creep, watching it recede. You can see that Serral is feeling the pressure right now. He feels the attacks on the right and the left. He's got some Banelings and Lings over here, so he might be able to deal with this, but he still has to deal with the Widowmines first. Sets off one of them. Second Widowmine is going to get set off, and now maybe Serral feels a little bit more comfortable on the right-hand side, but he is anything but comfortable in this game.
Yeah, I've never been so pained to see some creep tumors getting picked off, but the queens are completely out of energy and they're struggling to survive. So, you know, you have to make choices like, do I accumulate energy? Do I inject? Do I transfuse? Or do I spread creep? You want all of those things, and Serral really is constrained as far as the options that he has to work with. He is nearly maxed out. A miracle engagement for him, oh, that's not it, would go a long way to bring him back into the game. But outside of that, it's looking all Clem here, looking for a 3-1.
Serral is at least finally pushing back some of the army on the left-hand side, but Spore Crawler in the main is going to be able to whittle away. 2 Spore Crawlers in the main are going to be able to whittle away at the medevacs and create a very small area where those Marines even feel comfortable dropping out. They do have to evacuate out of there. Serral is not giving up just yet. He is going to try and hang in there, but he needs some miracle engagements. He needs to be able to smack down one or maybe even both sides of these attacks to get some breathing room so he can start making those transitions he really, really wants to make. But Clem so far is just not giving that opportunity. He is relentless with the continuous mild pressure on both sides.
Yeah, Serral now looking for a hive. At this point, I would suggest something like Burrow Banelings or something that's just really going to reset things kind of out of nowhere for you, as the Hydras on the other side are trying to make something happen. But that means Clem has free reign on the left-hand side, and Serral is going to scramble to defend. He's not even moving the rest of his army right now. He's just trying to defend with this, but the rest of his army is just idle. I mean, Serral is getting overwhelmed, right? Like, I mean, props to the resilience of Serral for holding off, getting maxed out and absorbing the pressure for 12 minutes of a relentless Clem. after taking 27, 28 workers worth of losses in the early game. That is absurd. But Clem, even more absurd with the resilience and with his own aggression nonstop, has baffled Serral to the point where he wasn't moving with his army. He was just kind of sitting there, maybe waiting for this next prone aggression from Clem. But it's looking so very difficult for Serral.
It is looking difficult, but I think that there's something I really want to credit Serral to be able to do, even as he's getting banelings picked off over here and Clem playing really fantastic, is that Serral has actually started getting up to transition points. He's started getting up a handful of infestors. He's started getting up a handful of vipers. He's even actually been able to make it to the other side of the map, even if it's just to delay a command center from landing. He's getting things done right now. It's not, big wins. It's not like Serral's in a great spot right now, but he is getting to a point where he's getting tools available to start mounting a comeback.
It is so difficult. The Queen's nearly out of energy still. This one's the one that has the most here on screen, and that makes it difficult for Serral to even make something happen on the back of that move out, right? Because yeah, he is gaining ground, but he's not managing to spread creep behind it even, right? So he's actually gaining grounds and denying that base, but now the next engagement is going to have to happen off of creep. The Infestor is going to help with that, at least for the start. The Liberators are going to get cleaned up here by the Hydras as well, as Serral continues to push on forward and tries to find something, and he's done a good job of that. The next mine, it can't be big, or Serral will be in trouble. For the time being, if he can find these SCVs, that would be wonderful before the Planetary Fortress morphs. That is kind of the way Serral's splitting the last two banelings there, or the last two links, to try to mitigate for damage. I mean, he needs every piece that he can find right now. Clem is no longer maxed, so Serral putting a little bit of a dent on that for the first time in a long while, taking a significant, a supply lead that is significant for itself, just because it is a lead that Serral has somehow found through all of this. And here's the couple of Vipers that you were referencing as well.
One Viper barely alive after that Widow Mine shot. Also getting those parasitic bombs down on one of the medevacs is going to be able to soften them up. Another parasitic bomb being dropped out.
God,
Marines and Marauders have to evacuate, and this this command center is going to have to lift off again. Hydras might even be able to finish off as the rest of the army is getting chased on back. Clem finally coming in with the reinforcements will be able to deflect Serral, and the command center, Serral's kind of waffling. He's deciding, should I commit for this? But he knows he will be trapped with those units if he does. He decides to back off.
Yeah, on the other side, however, Serral does miss the timing. Clem going at a million miles per hour on defense now, not just on offense, means that he's already going to have a planetary situated there. And that is going to make it very difficult for Serral to breach. And it's also going to give Clem a staging point for the next portion of his attack. But at this point, Serral has more or less stabilized in terms of supply, right? For the first time in the game, he is ahead. One more Infestor is out now, as Serral has identified how important that is to his success, especially given his gas bank relative to the mineral bank, right? Like nearly a 4-to-1 ratio there or so. So he really wants to spend his gas. Infestors and Vipers are the best units to do that, alongside Banelings to absorb a little bit of gas at even ratios. But Serral has to be really careful, and this is an area that he has to contest, because if you don't, again, it's the staging point for the attack of Clem as well.
Yeah, it's tough though. It's so far off of creep. You can see that Clem is just taking better, more cost-efficient trades. He's losing a few Widow Mines here and there in the defense, but he's always able to fall back to that Planetary Fortress as safety points. And, well, eventually, Clem is able to kind of re-secure that position, and Serral does have a bit of breathing room over here. He's able to remake a lot of these banelings.
Oh, finally, creep tumors. Look at those creep tumors. I mean, that gives me hope. Like, the creep is so very important and so understated, and a tool that Serral hasn't had to work with throughout this entire game. Clem did such a wonderful job pulling all of the queens over there, making them spend all of their energy in the south, and Serral was unable to get that launch. But now he has enough paintings to blow up this planetary fortress should he want to go for it. But this might proc Clem on the counter offense. So Clem right now, he has to be thinking, I have to do damage back. He's going to choose the left-hand side of the map to do that. Ghosts are already on the field. They are going to be pretty nasty units, but the Infestor here is getting ready perhaps for a Neuroparasite. Is it available? No, I don't think so. No, I mean, and no. Yeah, you wouldn't think so, even given the economy that Serral has had to work with, right? But a Fungal would be beautiful all the same. Here comes the Infestor. The Fungal is there. Serral will get the surround onto it, but only one mainly connecting, and that means the Fungal expires, and Clem is able to evacuate one medevac full of units. Serral on hot pursuit now.
Yeah, I mean, only a handful of the ghosts actually managed to get out of there. I think maybe 2 ghosts escape, or 3 ghosts escape out of there alive. Serral, continuing on forward, is going to go after the Planetary Fortress. He uses quite a few banelings on it, so it means he is not going to be comfortable trying to try any kind of trades over here or any kind of fight.
He has to cancel this base right away.
Yeah, bleeds out some more units. He has
Infestor.
one more Infestor over there that he could use.
Yeah, he probably will. You got to keep an eye on that because scans are going to be coming from Clem, especially as he moves on to creep. He doesn't want to continue to move on creep without scanning. So the Infestor has to be ready to get out there and get the fungal. The problem for Serral is you get a fungal, and then what are you going to do? I mean, it's mostly just Lynx and Hydras. Banelings are now morphing. They will be available, so look for Serral to unburrow any time now as the scan has also missed him. So Serral really looking for that fungal, and you have to applaud him for that decision. It's really what would bring him back into the game. A huge engagement right now would be brilliant. He killed 2 bases of Clem, so economically he can remain competitive, but he has to absorb because he spent so much. Oh no! Oh, he spent so much of his army there to get that, and now this is not the engagement for Serral. He's turning a corner. The mines are there. Clem is gonna split, and that's gonna be it. Serral gives up. GG, well played, and Clem wins 3.